While I was still in New York City, my friend Jerry Sneed Pierre had founded an organization called STEAM Kids Lab. Her goal was to bring science, technology, engineering, and mathematics learning to Black and Latino kids in the city. It was around 2015. My 7-year-old daughter and her then 8-year-old son were learning how to code. And I thought to myself then, if my kids could learn this thing, they would learn something that mommy never learned, so they could do things far beyond what mommy could ever do. And then after donating my kidney to my dad in 2016, I moved to Trinidad. I had come here to live with my Trinidadian husband. Things were rocky from the start. Along the way, the relationship became abusive. I lost my US dollar income. I lost custody of my daughter. The constant in my life was and still is Christ. I steadfastly nurtured my relationship with God, even as I endured emotional, physical, and financial abuse. Yes, financial abuse, it's a thing. Actually, financial abuse is almost always a factor in the entire abuse package because it is just another form of control and another way to subdue the abused. You may recognize yourself in some of these telltale signs of financial abuse. He never helps with any household chores. So you have little time and energy left over to learn or earn money to help yourself. He never, ever cares for the children in your absence. So that becomes another hurdle you have to leap over to get to the point where you can learn and earn and help yourself. He goes into your purse and takes your bank account. How about this one? After pleading with you to come and join him in your country, he neglects your immigration status. So you have absolutely no opportunity to earn in the local workforce. And in fact, you by default become a criminal for the first time in your life ever. I'm not here to demonize him. I just want to shed some light on some of these issues. Some of these things that seem just like simple character flaws, they are actually control tactics. And the person who perpetrates them is most often a very deeply wounded individual. By 2018, I was penniless with a failing 8 gig smartphone and a cheap laptop that was starting to fall apart already. Actually, Trinidad and Tobago has an amazing library system and I took full advantage of it. But then I learned that rich people read a lot. So that year, 2018, I set myself a goal to read 25 books. I had recently learned that Warren Buffett reads 50 books a year. So I thought to myself, if I could be half as rich as he is by reading half the amount of books he reads, my kids and I would be good to go. I exceeded the goal. I read 27 books for the year. On the night of December 31st, 2018, we call it Old Year's Night here. I went to Old Year's Night service, and my pastor, Warren Harper, spoke this pivot into my life. Up until that point, I had been in the hotel and restaurant hospitality industry, more recently focused in the beverage side for more than 20 years. His message was from the book of Philippians, where the Apostle Paul says the words, "This one thing I do." Pastor Harper challenged us that night to figure out what is that one thing. And on the morning of January 1st, 2019, I woke up and I knew what that one thing was. I teach. Even when I was a kid, we used to play school, I was the teacher. I tutored students in high school in mathematics and French. And all throughout the time that I worked in the hotel, restaurant, and beverage industry, alcohol beverage industry, I was called upon to train and to write manuals and to teach. I always taught, I teach. That's what I do. That's the one thing I do. Not long before that day, a woman had asked me to help her kids become better in reading. So I decided to reach out to the woman and say, you know what? I will start to teach them. And as I started doing that, a few more people started to ask me, and Pastor Harper's wife, Reverend Lilith Harper, who I spoke to about it, suggested that I get credentialed in teaching because I had a degree in hotel management, but I had no teaching credentials. Well, with a toddler and an infant and no money, I had no way to go back to school. I was discussing this with another sister in Christ, Ria Rajkumar. She let me know that the University of the West Indies, we call it UWI, was giving some courses online on a platform called Coursera. So I checked it out. Well, I didn't find the UWI classes, but I found my future. The only thing was that when I tried to sign up for a class, they asked me for a credit card number. Now, I have a debit card, but I had very little money on it. Certainly couldn't afford a class. Nevertheless, I was not deterred. I prayed for a way. Another day or so later, I went back on the website and I saw 3 words that changed my life. Financial aid available. I clicked the link. I applied for the financial aid, and I found out that Coursera financial aid means you take the class for free. So 15 days later, I started my first course. It was Foundations of Teaching for Learning, Introduction. It was my first teaching course offered by the Commonwealth Education Trust on Coursera. And I worked diligently on my crappy laptop and my crappy phone to finish that course. And when I saw my name on the certificate, the accomplishment, I was ready for more. So I signed up for another class. I applied to click financial aid available. I clicked it again, and I got approved again. And I took another course. I was starting to earn micro credentials. I read lots of John C. Maxwell books on leadership. And in one of the books, he discusses something about seasons. He said, you go through a learning season. And then when you're done with your learning season, you start to go into your earning season. You have to be patient with the learning season. You're not going to make any money during that time. And that was true for me. My learning season was upon me, but I was faithful to it. I kept learning. Even as my phone started to fail, and then finally it passed away in June 2019. So I relied upon my crappy laptop, which then passed away in August. I tried to go to the library and use computers there. I continued to read voraciously, and I continued to teach. And I waited on God. And in November, towards the end of the month, I saw God's face, and he extended his hand. One of the parents, her name is Ingrid, I teach 2 of her daughters. She couldn't always pay me, but she bought me a brand new phone. Coursera is the first app I downloaded. I decided I'm coming into 2020, and things are going to be different for me, different for my children. And in January 2020, my dad passed away. So I went to Dominica to bury my dad. My family helped me. I was still destitute. I was talking to my cousin about what I was doing online, and she asked me, but how do you take online courses? Can I do that too? I said, sure. I was already an expert on the financial aid available thing, so I did it for her. And 15 days later, her course began. And it just opened up a whole new realm of possibilities for her. In a tiny country where locally, the opportunities are few. I applied for a job locally, but in the meantime, I started to look online to see what I could find, and I found Upwork. And I got my first job. It was for $5. and I over-delivered. I didn't look at the $5 as any kind of deterrent. I just looked at the possibility. If nothing else, he'll write me a great review. Well, that $5 contract, thousands of dollars later, I came back to Trinidad in March 2020, just as the border closed, because COVID was hitting the fever pitch. So the job I had landed in Dominica, which was a teaching job at Dominica State College, which I landed showing my micro-credentials from Coursera, that evaporated. And I was in Trinidad, not sure why. I was in Trinidad still. I was just coming back here to collect my older son and some belongings and go back to Dominica. But God had his plan for me, and I trust him. So here I stayed. I continued to take my courses, and then more people around me here were asking me to help them take courses too. So I was doing that. In the process, I was given another laptop, a secondhand laptop, another gratitude gift. And with what I was earning on Upwork, I was able to move into a better apartment with my kid. Earnings season was beginning. So perhaps at this point you're wondering what happened to the coding. Well, when August rolled around, the Ministry of Education announced that they were going to be closing schools and all students would be going on virtual learning. By October, I was acting as a sort of surrogate parent learning coach for no less than 15 children. The parents were suffering from multiple levels of difficulty with this new situation. So I helped bridge the gap between these children and their teachers and their schools. But what I observed was that kids were missing out on more stuff that they would get in school that they're not getting anymore. School feeding. Actually did have to feed some kids. Gym class, PE. Yep, I got into that with them too. And just numerous extra programs that come through schools. You know, people that offer stuff, they weren't getting access to any of that. And then I remembered Jerry. So I went on code.org and I found some curricula and started teaching. First just my son, then another kid, then a third kid. And then I started teaching the two girls that were my friend Ingrid's daughters. And so now I had a little program pilot going, teaching kids how to code in the Caribbean. Right now, technology is evening out the playing field for everyone. So it doesn't matter where you are anymore, this developing, first world, third world, we're the majority world anyhow. And if we could learn the kind of skills that can get us to the point of being able to produce technology, we could compete. Kids changing the future of their countries with this skill. So on top of the courses, I was already continuously taking courses. I decided to learn how to code. So I went into code.org and found out what they teach high school students. And I started to follow that program to learn it myself. And I figured out two things. One, I'm actually really good at it. And two, I really like this stuff. I started learning how to build apps. And I continued to field requests for help getting courses online. And I saw how many people really need this help. In Damon John's book, The Power of Broke, he uses Christopher Gray as a case study. Christopher Gray is the founder of Scholly. And his story sounds a lot like the journey that I'm on right now. And so Upskill Me was born this year. Through this app, I'm reaching out to women worldwide who just need some help opening new doors for themselves. Millions of women worldwide are being victims of domestic abuse. Those are the women I really want to reach most. Women who need some kind of an exit strategy that they can work with right where they are, right now. And then they could do it with whatever they have on hand. You got a smartphone, you got Wi-Fi, you have options. But also, I want to reach women in parts of the world where local opportunities seem few for them. Because micro-credentials are just part of what the modern economy has for you. The other part is access to the global economy. in which you can work or do business right from where you are. That's my story. Thank you.